Good evening, everybody, and thank you for being here tonight. Appreciate your willingness to continue to learn and grow, especially after a hearty dinner in 3 days and the sun going down and getting a little sleepy. So I promise you, I will not be too long with my remarks. I know that you've heard speakers say that before, but listen, I've been in that chair before, and I know what happens after a little bit of cheesecake, because I just had some myself, and dinner and a whole bunch of activities. I want to make sure I make some remarks, but I want to make sure that you stay with me. But before I do that, I want to make sure I say thank you to the Board of Trustees here at Founding Forward. I am a senior fellow here as well. I had an opportunity, as Deepak and the team knows, I had a chance to be in Philadelphia at the Union League for their Good Citizen Day Award, their 80th annual award on Wednesday night, and it was a privilege to be there. I just want to make sure I say thank you to the whole Founding Forward team. You make nights like this happen. So if you can, just turn around for just a second, give them a round of applause in the back of the room, including your chaperones. Now, together we make years like this matter, namely 250 years of ups and downs, highs and lows, as a great experiment that came from the concepts laid down in our independence, Declaration of Independence. And whereas we had hoped that this celebratory moment might be one purely of fireworks lighting up the sky and dreams illuminating our imagination, we instead also have to watch the night skies threaten both our allies and our adversaries across the Middle East, and thoughts center on concerns for domestic terrorism and international as well as internal strife. Together, despite these lows and highs we face now, we're at this point where we can still enjoy the freedoms that God has given us and our Constitution protects. Each one of you and each one of us helps make America be better, stronger, and bolder in the spirit of liberty. Now, we do so because of the Pillars of Responsibility, those values of respect, accountability, participation, productivity, and generosity. We have done so over the course of 250 years. Those principles have held us together in times of celebration and victory, as well as during times of poverty and worry. Our greatest experiment has yielded the greatest value of freedom in history. Those principles stick in good times and in challenging times. And right now, as we all well know, we are in challenging times. Our wars going on now, both culturally and internationally. We have troops in harm's way in the Middle East. The cost of living in American cities continues to rise. And as we well know, we have lawmakers both in our states and in Washington, D.C. that remained locked in gridlock, whether it's in local government, state government, or federal government. Now, if we counted on personalities of the politicians or slick campaign slogans to help us get through the problems that we face as a nation, we would really, truly be in trouble. Luckily for us, America wasn't built on the providences of kings or the promises of political parties. Even when civic leaders or policymakers say or do something that gives us hope or gives us an opportunity to advance ourselves, it's because of the foundation that they stand on. It's those pillars of civic responsibility that we've counted on for 250 years. They are fortresses that protect our values through war, while also being the houses that give us comfort in times of peace. With our nation facing so many challenges today, it's all that more important that all of us in this room today, and those that you will touch once you go home, have the opportunity to once again embrace those pillars of civic responsibility. Now, most likely, you've seen them in your daily lives with your parents and your teachers, with your coaches and your classmates. In fact, the roles of those pillars of responsibility are what brought you here today. So you know about them, but tonight I want us to consider something more. I want to show you how, even during times like what we're facing in 2026, they can get us through yet another period of time of trials and tribulations to get us to a better place of time. Respect, accountability, participation, productivity, generosity. What do they bring out that helps us get through those two extremes? War and peace. What can accountability and productivity do for us here at home when our soldiers are abroad? What can respect, participation, and generosity do for us in our surroundings as we battle through cultural wars that seem to gnaw at us on social media, cable news, and protests in the streets, including the ones that we're seeing going on across the country even today? Domestically and internationally, we're in battles for international security, for domestic sanctity, and for our civic souls. The pillars give us gifts that, if we use them correctly, allow us to win the wars we're currently locked in and secure the peace that we're all seeking. What do these pillars do for us when we use them correctly? Well, for one, they give us focus. They point us back to the goals of each endeavor we take on as Americans. Our active work, our respect for others, and our accountability to the tenets of our founding documents. They point us to a belief in the rights of men that are given by God and then protected by our Constitution. They direct us to keep in mind at all times that our steps in conflict must always lead to a place of peaceful resolution, where the generosity of spirit that God shows us is reflected in the society we produce and support. Those pillars focus us on the values of our work, not just victories on battlefields. Our goal, advanced by these values, is simple. Winning any argument or conflict is not the point. The point is to find the place of peace for all of us to enjoy, to complete that pursuit of happiness that's mentioned in the Declaration of Independence. Standing on these pillars and doing so with a deliberate intentionality that is patriotic and persistent, that ensures that our actions remain true. Respect, accountability, participation, productivity, and generosity. They also give us decorum. The dictionary defines decorum as behavior in keeping with good taste and propriety. And propriety is often defined as the state or quality of conforming to conventionally accepted standards of behavior and morals. The pillars of civic responsibility give us focus to participate in good taste, consistent with the accepted standards of behavior and morals as Americans. They give us the framework of how we must conduct ourselves as citizens in this constitutional republic. Because democracies, after all, can be messy and feelings can be engulfing. These pillars, they give us decorum. And decorum gives us temperance to use law and reason within our society, not just emotions and trends. We must participate, but as you're learning this weekend, we must be educated in our participation. We must produce something meaningful as we participate, yet our productivity must create laws and customs that advance respect for the self-determination that each woman and man in our communities deserves. We must be accountable to the morals and standards that our forefathers and great mothers created for us, yet also be generous with understanding, knowing that when we all advance the civic goals of our nation, as we stick to our common values, we have a North Star that we all chase and we all get there together. We can't just be a ragtag group of cities and communities. Our goal for 250 years has always been to move forward as a more perfect union. In America, focus and decorum give us structure. They give us our values. They give us a place for those values to reside, rest, and allowed us to move forward, both in the past and now. They give us the blueprint for that structure, those founding documents, including that declaration that was written right down the road from here some 250 years ago. That foundation gives us a steady footing from which we can project both our individual and national aspirations. An aspiration, after all, is key in pursuing happiness. Because we know we're going to fall short at some point in time. Every single day, we're not going to quite always do our best. Yet those pillars give us structure to constrain our worst impulses and a foundation to uphold our best intentions. It's allowed us to eventually move from bad times to better times, from our failures as people to improvements collectively as a nation. That's been happening over and over again over the course of 250 years. And how do we know that? Because we're here today. We know it works. We know that if we foster the responsibility of being citizens, we have the opportunity to harness great power and do great things together. However, with that great power, the ones that citizens have, when they stand upon those pillars, we also know comes great responsibility, as somebody's Uncle Ben once said. That type of power, though, one rooted within the civic responsibility you've been learning about this weekend, is always more powerful than politicians in office or political trends of the day. And that power always rests within each one of your hands. Without it, the American great experiment can't exist. Without it, we can't have an American democracy that empowers people moving forward. Without it, we can't have the decorum necessary to tackle the tough challenges together with respect for our individuality and respect for our common history. Our three-bodied democracy counts on us to have both focus and decorum. Again, respect, accountability, participation, productivity, and generosity. When Americans keep those values, we're able to differentiate between what's a random rule or a random law and what is just, fair, and liberating law. We're able to see why regulations that satisfy the whim of some technocrat someplace will never quite be enough to advance freedom for every American citizen. Every piece of construction is not a building block for growth, and every single law is not necessarily a law that fosters freedom. Some, after all, are barriers that stymie success. Some are built to be walls that separate us. And without civic responsibility, we have concrete without substance. We have hardness that does not allow us to stand on something firm and do it together. That's why, as a society, we must be empowered in understanding our responsibility. That's how we have the necessary energy to move forward with a more perfect union. Those 5 pillars of civic responsibility, they ensure that our focus is on the best traditions and intentions of America. They foster a decorum of self and society that ensures that the Bill of Rights and constitutional protections that we share are more than just talking points. They are milestones that we observe in our daily journey. Those values, they uplift us with structure when everyday institutions let us down. Let's be clear. Without those civic responsibilities in play, institutions in America have always let us down, and they will continue to do so. Tax policies will never quite fill the deficits, and politicians will continuously create gridlock instead of finding efficient, smart compromises. Freedom of religion will morph into fights about making one religion more important than another. Freedom of speech will build echoes, silos, intended to block one voice out over another. Amendments, rights that we count on, will not be available to all Americans. They become subjective and applied from time to time, not all the time. And when we have that, hope starts to fade. And civic pride, as we've seen recently, starts to erode. And that's because institutions alone, they don't have substance. They mean nothing without the pillars that provide us the focus and decorum to stand upon, so that those institutions can serve the American people in a way that allows us to build a better America. But those pillars of civic responsibility do more than just give us focus, decorum, and structure. They form bridges, ones that lead us away from war and into peace. They form the roads that cross over troubles and bring us to a place of hope. They guide us from within and allow us to have the civic engineering necessary to keep us steady and keep us focused on moving forward. Now, if you think about it, bridges are truly marvels. They're technical miracles of brain power and ingenuity that combine with raw strength and grit. Together, they connect us in ways that were previously unimaginable. For example, I want you to look over my shoulder. This is, for those of you that are not from Pennsylvania, this is the New River Gorge Bridge. It's a bridge I've crossed about 200 times on my way to North Carolina as a student at North Carolina by way of Davidson College, and then living in North Carolina for 10 years. When you cross that bridge, there's no doubt of its structure. In fact, it was the largest arch bridge in the world until a couple of years ago. China built one longer. It is still the longest arch bridge in North America. Once you see it, and you cross it at 70 miles an hour, or if you're going a little faster and hoping that the police aren't there, maybe a little faster than 70 miles an hour, you don't doubt its structure. You don't doubt the plan. You're just glad it's there. Now, I want you to think about the bridge over my shoulder. It's 870 feet long. It's 870 feet high. It's 3,030 feet long. It's over half a mile. A half a mile that's going over the New River. It's closing that gap between two mountains in the mountain state. It's a structure that's built from plans that had focus. It's a necessity that came about because as we evolved as a people, namely in West Virginia, the coal mining industry, more population, there was a need to connect communities together. And out of absolutely nothing but a plan and some focus and a way of doing things, a structure came about that bridged people together. But interestingly enough, when you think about that bridge, that technical marvel, is it not quite the same exact thing what the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution have been in our country for 250 years roughly? Is it not the same exact thing, bringing people together that previously had not been brought together before? But think about this. What I'm asking you all to do tonight is not just think about bridges made of steel and concrete. The bridges we need the most right now are made of human beings. They're made of you and me. They're made of us as citizens working together. It's made of us closing the gaps that are ahead of us, even in a society where polling from your generation says that you don't believe in the American dream as much anymore. That you don't believe in free market principles as much anymore. That you believe that America's finest days are behind us. But I'm here to tell you, if you're willing and able to be a bridge, just as we thought that that was not true years before, and we were correct, we can once again prove that America's best days are ahead of us. Let me tell you about my trip to Ocala, Florida in 2010. So I had two scheduled events on that day. One at a tea party, the other one at an NAACP meeting. Now, I'm going to ask the adults in the back, how many tea parties usually involve NAACP? So you all get an idea of what I was facing. My friends told me, pick a side. You got to pick one or the other. Those two groups don't like each other. The midterm elections are coming up. Tea Party activists are full of racists. The NAACP people hate white people. Why would you go to both groups? Pick one. I told him no. Told him you cannot heal a country that at the time was fighting the Great Recession, was losing hundreds of thousands of jobs a month. The unemployment rate in some cities was over 20%. And the food lines were going around churches and schools because people were hungry and starving. So the only way you bring those folks together is you talk to them. So guess what I did? Took my time. I showed up for both. Made it a point to write speeches for both. I promise you it wasn't after dinner, so it didn't seem as long. And I also sat there and I shook hands and I talked to both groups. Guess what I found out? They both were hoping for a positive message during the Great Recession. They both were hoping that people would tell them that better days were ahead. They both wanted increased safety in their neighborhoods. They wanted their kids to have better schools. They wanted better jobs. They wanted to feel included. They wanted to feel like their American citizenship mattered. And it did. See, there are certain values that give us all hope, that give us all focus, that give us all decorum, and they give us all the strength to be bridges. They give us a very clear directive. Each one of us is called on to take the obligation of citizenship. And that obligation is more than just being a good person or being a nice person. The obligation of citizenship has 4 requirements. Number 1, serve with civic love. Respect the constitutional rights of others while defending those rights of our family and friends. Number 2, participate with purpose. Redress the government when it's off course. Reform our society towards a more perfect union. Our long-term behavior as citizens, that matters more than any short-term or short-lived victories. Third, build with productivity. Make sure that the fruit of your labor never comes from a poisonous tree. Does everybody know what that means? Hold yourself accountable to do things the right way, the constitutional way, the way that makes society better, because it will make you better overall as well. And fourth, be the bridge. Don't just look for bridges in other Americans. Be those bridges yourself. After all, we are United States, not just merely a collection of communities. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to be carbon copies of each other. I mean, just look around. Not everybody looks the same. Not everybody comes from the same area. Not everybody talks the same. We might not have the same things in life. Some of you might be rich. Some of you might be as rich as Deepak. I don't know. I know I'm not. But there's certain things we do share. We share certain values. We share certain beliefs. We have certain constitutional protections and traditions that apply to us all. See, civil responsibility and those pillars that you learned about this weekend oblige us to cast aside the very silos that society continuously tells us we should be taking up. Those pillars are there for us to be those bridges. Those pillars are there for us to take the appropriate chances. Those pillars are there for us to remember and understand that before we got here today, and before you got to school, and before I got to school, and before they got to school, somebody else was in a school. Somebody else was in the streets. Somebody else was in the halls of government, making sure that we had this chance here today. Making sure that we could peaceably assemble. Making sure that we could, and I quote, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the liberties for ourselves and our posterity. Those blessings matter, folks. They are timeless. They are not given by the Constitution. They are protected by it. This is why learning about those pillars matter. This is why the work that you're doing here this weekend matters. This is why we're thankful that you're here. The great abolitionist, Mr. Frederick Douglass, once said that education means emancipation. It means light and liberty. It means the uplifting of the soul of man into the glorious light of truth, the light by which men can only be made free. Now, the verb educate means give intellectual, moral, and social instruction to. That's what the Pillars of Responsibility did, not just for Frederick Douglass, but for Abraham Lincoln, Sojourner Truth, Thurgood Marshall, and others. It gave them the opportunity to move past their cultural wars, move past their unjust laws, win their international conflicts, and be a better America as a result, regardless of the America they were born into. That is the challenge that each generation has, and that's the generation we have today. Those pillars are the resources that we need so that we can be those bridges. And understanding those pillars isn't just about knowing what they are. The effort from 1777, right here in Valley Forge, and moving forward for 250 years, it started with a commitment that said we're going to move past our troubles and we're going to stand on something that's bigger than ourselves. It said that we're going to do more and be inspired by more than just a patriotic speech, more than just focus, more than just decorum. It said we were going to be the strength that we need. We were going to be the bridges to better days. Those 5 pillars: respect, see the humanity in people you disagree with, and respect the American process. Accountability, own your mistakes. Participation, show up and with decorum, do what is best even when it's not easy to do. Productivity, build something that outlasts you. Generosity, give more than you take, and give with joy, and take always with humility. In citizenship, stand upon those 5 pillars and be the bridge from turbulent times to better times. Now, I've talked a lot about bridges, and as a matter of fact, I've crossed a lot of bridges. I'm from Pittsburgh, after all. Has anybody ever been to Pittsburgh? There you go. Pittsburgh is the city of bridges. It has more bridges in its city than any other city in the world. So I've spent a lot of time crossing bridges over the course of my life. One of the reasons why, in my book, I made it a point to put 2 bridges there. One, the Clemente Bridge from my native Pittsburgh, and one, the DuSable Bridge from Chicago, Illinois, where I spent a lot of time on the south side. Now, it might look like it's a cool design or maybe just a hat tip to where I lived. But it's more than that. It's a symbol of, regardless of where we're from, we can connect to others if we put forth the effort and we're determined to lean on civic responsibility to be the bridge. In closing, the spirit of 1776 wasn't just a declaration of independence. The Constitution of 1787 wasn't just a legal document. Those founding documents were blueprints for us to connect to others, to make sure we're always connected to liberty. We're always trying to move forward as a more perfect union. Our commitment today is to stay focused, keep decorum, and establish a structure that allows us to stand strong and make sure that we bring other Americans in as we go along. Allow them to see that the American dream is still real. Allow them to understand that in working together, we can bring about a more perfect union. So as you leave Valley Forge and you return to your communities, remember, don't just look for bridges, be the bridges. Apply the civic responsibility pillars to your lives every single day. Challenge others to do the same. And when you do that, you aren't just a resident of a republic. You are a builder of that more perfect union. You are an active citizen. You are the reason why we move forward. You empower the great experiment and ensure that 50 years from now, another generation will look back, look at our troubled times, and end up saying, they kept us steady. They carried us over. They knew who they were. They knew who we would be. They were the bridge to get us there. Thank you very much, folks, for your patience and understanding on a long Saturday night. God bless you all. Thank you.